Hello, my name is Brad Spence, and this is part two of my two-part series on the Italian Unification Wars. So, with that out of the way, let's begin. With the failure of the First Italian War of Unification, it became clear that Sardinia needed a powerful ally. And the only nation that can give Sardinia the help they needed was the French. To do that, they sent men to the Crimean War in 1855, where they performed gallantly, and this got them a seat at the Congress of Paris, where the Sardinian Prime Minister, Count Camillo Benso of Cavour, made sure to promote the cause of Italian unification to the major European powers. On the 21st of April, 1858, Count Cavour got French support with the Plombier Agreement. For future military help with Austria, Sardinia would cede the duchies of Savoy and the county of Nice to France. On January 1859, the French government and the Kingdom of Sardinia signed a treaty in which France would come to Sardinia's defense against the Austrian military aggression. With this, Cavour then proceeded to try to provoke Austria into military action by launching aggressive military maneuvers close to the Austrian ruled Lombardy. This angered Vienna and sent an ultimatum to Turin, which was rejected, starting the Second War of Italian Independence. The first battle of the war began on the 20th of March at Montebello. The Austrian Fifth Corps faced General Foy's division with three Sardinian cavalry regiments, which the outnumbered allies defeated the Austrians, and the army moved deeper into Austrian territory. On the 23rd of June in the morning, the Emperor Franz Joseph arrived and took command of the Austrian army, and in an attempt to turn the tide of the war, Franz Joseph launched a counterattack near Chiese River in an attempt to defeat the Allied army. But the Allied army was much closer to them than the Austrians suspected, but neither side did any reconnaissance. Meaning, as darkness fell on the 23rd, neither army knew that they were only a few kilometers away from each other. On the 24th of March, at 4 o'clock, the French army moved out towards Mincio River, and Napoleon ordered his 1st and 2nd Corps to follow the steep ridgeline towards Solferino and Cavagnara, and 3rd and 4th Corps were ordered to head for Galizzolo, and the Sardinian army were heading towards Pozzolengo. But when the morning mist cleared, to the Allied army's shock, they find that the Austrian army had occupied the hills. The French attacked the Austrian outposts, and when Napoleon got news of this, he climbed a church tower at Castiglione to verify the report. Seeing the importance of the heights around Solferino to the Austrian lines, he ordered 1st and 2nd Corps to attack Solferino and the rest of the Allied army to protect the flanks and to pin down the Austrians. On the Allied army's northern flank, the Sardinians found their units were spread out for miles and attacking in piecemeal, meaning that despite outnumbering the Austrians were under General Benedict were able to repel the Sardinians easily. It's not until mid-morning that the Sardinians were able to capture portions of the critically important San Martino hill, but the Austrians counterattacked and drove them off the hill. Isolated from the rest of the battle, on like this for the rest of the day, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage over the other. In the southern front, 3rd and 4th Corps had been marching since 2 a.m. and were unaware that there were about to face 4 Austrian corps laying in front of them. Around 5 a.m., 4th Corps met Austrian units at Medele. It took several hours of intense fighting in the town, and undeterred by this encounter, they continued to push towards Galizzano, only to be met by 3 Austrian corps that outnumbered them 2-1. 4th Corps was fighting for their survival, driving back waves after wave of Austrians and against all odds holding its ground. Meanwhile, 3rd Corps was advancing slowly with objectives between helping 4th Corps and guarding Mantua from a possible Austrian attack on their extreme right flank. Meanwhile, in the center, after hard fighting, 1st Corps had taken the hills in front of Solferino, only to see that Solferino was a fortress with every hill was entrenched with dozens of cannons, and the town convent and walled cemetery were packed with thousands of soldiers. And to make it more difficult, 2nd Corps was unable to commit to the attack due to the Austrians massing along their front, and any movement towards would widen the already dangerously large gap between 2nd and 4th Corps. Seeing this, Napoleon ordered all of his available cavalry and artillery to fill in the gap between 2nd and 4th Corps, but luckily for the French, Franz Joseph did not seize this opportunity to launch a full-scale attack against the French forces in the south. If he did, he would have won the battle. Seeing an opportunity, General Schwarzenberg, who commanded the Austrian 3rd Corps, launched a counterattack against the weak French line, but due to a lack of support, his advance was checked with over 40 rifle cannons of 2nd Corps, decimating his forces, and when the French cavalry arrived and charged his corps routed, with 3rd Corps arriving to support 4th Corps, and 2nd Corps was able to attack Solferino, which the French 1st Corps had been trying to take, but every time they tried, the Austrians pushed them back with hail or fire, and Napoleon himself joined 1st Corps to encourage the men near the front lines, despite several of his staff officers were getting seriously wounded around him. 2nd Corps arrived at 11 a.m. with its fearless Algerian tirailleurs to support 1st Corps, but the Austrians held their ground and poured devastating volleys into the French. With the attack being repelled, Napoleon needed reinforcements to drive home the faltering attack. He sent in the infantry of the Imperial Guard, which had been held in reserve till now. Around 1:30 p.m., several batteries of French artillery opened a devastating cannonade, and 400 soldiers attacked the fortified heights, with the Austrians fighting desperately against the vicious French attacks. In the face of unrelenting onslaught, the defenders buckled and retreated, and the French captured Solferino, and at the same time 2 divisions of the 2nd Corps captured San Cassiano and Montefatana. With the French capturing the heights and the Austrian centre on the verge of collapse, Franz Joseph ordered the Austrian First Army to counterattack in a desperate attempt to salvage the battle. At 3:30 p.m, the Austrian cavalry clashed with the French Guard cavalry and made a considerable progress, but the Guard artillery with its 42 guns drove the attackers, and the 4th was able to withstand another Austrian attack. With this failure, Marshal Winfen ordered his army to retreat, and at 5 p.m. Franz Joseph ordered his army to retreat. As the Austrians were retreating, a violent storm hit, and a torrent of rain hit the exhausted soldiers on both sides, which was a relief after fighting 12 hours in blistering heat. Due to the storm and exhaustion, the Allied army was unable to launch an effective pursuit of the enemy. Despite a great victory, Napoleon was shocked by the heavy losses, with the Allies suffering 17,000 casualties out of an army of 130,000, and the Austrians suffered 32,000 men being killed, wounded, and captured out of an army of 140,000. When Henry Durand witnessed the aftermath of the battle, he would go on to found the Red Cross and the Geneva Convention. Within days of the battle, Franz Joseph agreed to a ceasefire, following by an armistice of Villafranca, which was surprisingly lenient by Napoleon III, in which Lombardy was given to Sardinia, and as agreed, Plombier agreement, France got Nice and Savoy, and Austria would still control Valencia. Upset by the fact that Sardinia did not get Valentia, Cavour instructed plebiscites for the Central Italian League, which included the duchies of Mona, Parma, the Papal Legation of Romagna, and the Grand Duchy of Tuscany, in which a majority of the population voted enthusiastically in favour of annexation by Sardinia, which came into effect on the 20th of March 1860. On the 11th of May, Garibaldi's expedition of the 1000 began, with his red shirts disembarking at Marsala, Sicily, to begin the liberation of the 2 Sicilies from Bourbon rule. And 4 days later, the red shirts faced the Neapolitan army at Calatafimi and defeated them, and locals started joining Garibaldi's army. On the 27th of May, the red shirts laid siege to Palermo, and with the help of a popular uprising inside the city surrendered to the red shirts on the 30th. Despite outnumbering the red shirts, Sicily would fall to the red shirts shirts on the tray 4th of July after defeating the Neapolitan army at Milazzo. On August 19th, the red shirts landed on mainland Italy and facing little resistance as the Neapolitan army quickly collapsed and Garibaldi and his red shirts entered Naples on the 7th of September. Meanwhile, the Sardinian army, totaling 39,000 men, invaded the Papal States and defeated a 10,000 Papal army at Castelfidardo on the 18th of September, with only Rome and its immediate surroundings remaining in Papal hands due to Napoleon III needing the support of the Catholic Church in France, sent troops to protect Rome from the Sardinians. In an attempt to retake Naples, King Francis II sent 28,000 men to defeat the Red Shirts and retake the city, but the Red Shirts defeated the Neapolitan army at the Battle of Fortore River on October 1st, despite the Neapolitans outnumbering them. After hearing the news of the defeat, Francis II and his remaining forces retreated to Gaeta, his last stronghold. The Sardinian army joined Garibaldi's army and they laid siege to Gaeta on November 5th, and the fortress would surrender on the 13th of February, and King Francis II and his family went into exile in Rome under the protection of the Pope. And on the March 27th, the Kingdom of Italy was proclaimed with Victor Emmanuel II as King of Italy. Wanting Rome, Garibaldi raised an army in Sicily and marched on Rome, but the Italian government did not approve of this and sent an army to stop him, and they defeated and captured him at the Battle of Aspromonte on the 29th of August 1862. He was put in jail in Vagnaro, and the Roman question remained unsolved. On April 8, 1866, Otto von Bismarck made an alliance with Italy, which he would use in the Austro-Prussian War, which broke out on the 14th of June, which Italy would join on the 20th of June, and they would invade Veneto. But on the 24th, Italy suffered a disastrous defeat at the Battle of Pezzona. Despite outnumbering the Austrians, basically both sides attacked each other head-on at the heights near Villafranco, but three Italian divisions stayed in defensive positions to a failed Austrian cavalry charge, and they feared another attack by the Austrians. After battering at the Austrian lines, and both sides thinking that they were losing the battle, so the Italians started to retreat, and a hole began to form in the Italian lines, which the Austrians exploited, and they defeated the Italians. And at sea, they had another disastrous defeat at the Battle of Lissa on July 20th. If you want to get more details on the battle, I suggest watching Drakenfeld's video on it because it's really good. But for now, here's the summary version. Despite having a much more modern fleet than the Austrians, the Italian admiral Carlo di Bassano changed his formation from a line abreast to a line ahead, and as they were changing their formation, he switched ships from the flagship Re Italia to the Air Fontadore, without telling anyone that he had switched ships, which caused more confusion. The Austrian admiral Wilhelm von Tedetsov saw a gap in the Italian line and concentrated his fleet and headed straight for crossing the T, and which the two sides rammed each other, with the Austrian flagship SMS Ergenzold Ferdinand Max goes on a rampage, and with the Italian fleet taking heavy losses and the loss of two ironclads, the Italian fleet fled. But luckily for Italy, thanks to Prussian decisive victory over the Austrians, despite their poor performance of the Italians, the Austrians were forced to cede Venetia to Italy on the 3rd of October. With Venice under Italian control, Giuseppe Garibaldi declared during the conquest of Geneva on September 9, 1867, that the papacy was the neglection of God, shame, and plague of Italy. Garibaldi raised an army of 10,000 volunteers, due to him being the only Italian general who obtained a success during the Third War of Unification, and at the height of his popularity, and planned to march on Rome. When Napoleon III found out what Giuseppe Garibaldi was planning, he sent a relief force to support the Papal army, and the Franco-Papal army defeated Garibaldi's army at the Battle of Mentana on November 3rd, when the Franco-Prussian War began, and the French garrison in Rome was ordered to return to France front to help the war effort, but the Italians didn't just march into Rome and take the city from the Pope. King Victor Emmanuel II sent a proposal to the Pope. The proposal was that the Pope would retain his sovereignty, inviolability, and prerogative. The Leonic city would remain under papal control. The Italian state would guarantee the Pope freedom to communicate with the Catholic world, diplomatic immunity for both papal diplomats and foreign diplomats at the Holy See. The Italian government would supply a permanent annual fund for the Pope and the cardinals equal to the annual current assigned to them by the budget of the pontifical state, and would assume all papal civil servants and soldiers onto the state payroll with full pensions as long as they were Italian. The Pope refused and the Italian troops marched into the papal states. On the 19th of September, General Raphael Cadorna surrounded the city. The Pope threatened that anyone who gave the order to start the artillery barrage on Rome will be excommunicated from the Catholic Church. So the Italians gave the honor of the first artillery barrage of Rome to a Jewish artillery officer named Galeno Sergi, and at 5 a.m. on the 20th of September, the shelling began, and at the end of the day, the city surrendered to the Italian army, and the Pope was a prisoner in the Vatican City till Benito Mussolini and Pope Pius XI signed the Lateran Treaty on February 11, 1929, which recognized the Vatican City, and when Italy became a republic, they kept the treaty because they didn't want to start the Roman question again. If you like this video, like and subscribe. See you next time.